Would you take financial advice from Big John Fury?
Take some from Tyson. I don't know what to take from John. Harlem has been looking for a big fight. Jack is a tough man to beat. I wouldn't be surprised if the fight ends up on Netflix.
Hello and welcome back to Sun Sports Split Decision, your ringside seat to everything happening in the world of boxing. Wally, what have we got coming up on today's episode?
We are going to look back at Dave Allen's sensational and ruthless demolition of Johnny Fisher and what that means for both of their careers going forward. Eddie Hearn is going to tell Jack his version of what Anthony Joshua and Conor Benn are going to do next. Harlem Eubank is going to talk to us about taking on Jack Catterall in his next important step-up fight. And we're going to look at what Josh Taylor is now going to do in the welterweight division as he takes on Ekow the Engine Essuman.
So, well, with the sun sort of going back in, I was worried that you were going to start wearing trousers again, but it's good to see that you've kept up the uniform.
Once the hair goes and the pot belly comes, you have to work with what you've got. And until varicose veins start bursting out, and I have to wear flip-flops in, mate, legs are my last resort, and it's about all I've got going for me.
Yeah, amazing. So let's start off with...
What do you mean amazing?
I hadn't counted that far, to be fair. But let's start off with the copper box, where the scene of Dave Allen's, as you said, vicious knockout of Johnny Fisher. Now, if anyone had listened to Dave Allen, he kind of predicted it perfectly. He said for the first four rounds, I'm not going to throw any punches. Second half of the fight is where I'll come into it, and boy, did he.
Even more importantly, Jack, if you go back to December, the morning after the first fight, the two fellas were interviewed together and asked about a rematch, and Dave Allen said, Johnny is my friend. He should not take this rematch. It is too early for him. I am all wrong for him. I don't want Johnny to take the rematch. Now, don't get me wrong, boxing is full of a lot of bravado and mind games. To me, Dave Allen told the world right there and then what he was going to do. Johnny's team around him, management, promotional, trainer, they should have watched that first fight and known that fight was wrong for their 26-year-old, brave, tough, willing, powerful guy to take. Dave knew the score. You know, Johnny's been doing this maybe 5-6 years. Dave's been doing it 15 years. Dave warned everyone not to do it. Nobody listened. No one's ever going to stop Johnny Fisher taking the fight. Like every boxer, he's too brave for his own good. Someone around Johnny Fisher should have said, this fight's not right, John. We'll get a better fight for Dave. We'll move Dave towards the British title. Johnny, we're going to get you a few more fights, help you handle taking shots, help you getting in a dogfight, because he'd done so well in his early career. It was too much, too soon. They were warned in that first fight. They got away with one in the first fight. And instead of being sensible and looking after their interest, Johnny was thrown in. He tried to box in a way he's essentially never boxed before, on the back foot.
And you could see at times he did look quite uncomfortable. Like he'd land a good shot, land a good counter, and then he'd get on his bike and he almost didn't know what to do next. Yeah,
so we spoke in here before saying that maybe going into the copper box, selling a load of tickets was playing into Dave Allen's hands. And I think everything they did played into Dave Allen's hands. It's a wonderful win for Dave. And I look forward to him getting a British title shot soon. And I hope Johnny gets respect for taking a rematch. For me, there should be questions asked about the people around him who put him into that fight, because it's all very well saying I knew, but you know, everyone that I spoke to that's around boxing thought Dave Allen would win that fight, and that's rare and strange, really, that everyone knew who was going to win that. So that you think, well, why is that young, hungry prospect who's fearless and a great ticket seller and an asset, why has he been put into that fight that nobody really saw him winning?
Yeah, and last week, off the back of Anto Kakachi's great win against Lee Wood, I asked you what should be next, and you said simply, whatever pays him the most. Is that the same for Dave Allen?
No, I don't think so with Dave. I mean, he's an absolute enigma of a man. I think every British boxing fan loves Dave Allen and what he's done in his story. I believe he would love to win the British title, which I think is around David Adelaide's waist.
Yeah, so David Adelaide holds the belt. He beat TKV in fairly controversial style. The board have ordered a rematch.
For me, Dave Allen can sit pretty now for a little while. If they can do Adelaide and TKV quickly, then if I was Dave Allen, I would sit there and make sure that Eddie Hearn delivers me that British title shot, because I think he was boxing for Eddie when he saved the Dillian White card. Probably
Lewis Ortiz.
Lewis Ortiz. The David Price fight, was that on an Eddie show?
It wasn't. Yeah.
He's given blood and brain cells to Eddie, like Johnny Fisher has. So now Eddie can deliver him the British title shot that Dave deserved.
Yeah. Before we talk about what's next for Johnny Fisher, we'll talk about the KO, because he was down just before it. It was kind of a clubbing shot. It wasn't a clean shot necessarily, but it's always bad when they sort of face plant to the floor, which is what happened. He got up and he was on shaky legs, and I remember thinking at the time, that's not a great look. And then I heard the klaxon go for the last 10 seconds, and I instinctively thought, give him the 10 seconds to make it through. Before we talk about how long was left on the clock, do you think the fight should have been stopped after the first knockdown?
With so little time left on the clock, I think his team probably leaves him in because they know he's got 15 seconds, 10 seconds, anything like that. For me, when the only thing, and again, this is looking back at it, when he steps up, the ref, Marcus McDonald, says, walk towards me. And looking back, I don't think he does. I don't think he can. Listen, in the heat of the moment, with 10 seconds left, I don't think that you can blame Marcus McDonald too much. I'm the first to criticise a fight being left to go on too long, but I don't think we can pinpoint too much criticism at anyone. Just
quickly on Johnny, because he's 26. I think that was his 13th or 14th fight, so plenty of times to build back. But it was a very concussive knockout, one that you just don't know what kind of effect it will have on them. So how do you build Johnny Fisher back, and is there any telling how he'll return?
Again, it's tricky, He's been a rugby player all through school and university. Then I think his first foray into professional boxing was being a Joe Joyce sparring partner. So he would have done
a tough gig that at the time, anyway.
Yeah, imagine the chats. Like hundreds of rounds with Joe Joyce in head guards and 16-ounce gloves, which means there are no knockouts. You're in there for 8, 10, 12 rounds. So in a short space of time, he would have done a lot of hard heavyweight rounds, but he speaks eloquently and brilliantly, so I don't fear for Johnny Fisher at 26. But the first fight was incredibly gruelling. I remember when you interviewed his dad for our last show last week, he talked about how off his balance was and how damaged his ear was. Now, it was only really the last 6 rounds of that fight where he was quite badly beaten up, and in that one, it was only really the 5th. So he's only really had 7 rounds of professional punishment in 10-ounce gloves. So we'll see. We'll see how much it affects his chin, his confidence. He's such a good ticket seller, and he's such a good lad to be in the sport for British boxing.
He's a good asset for...
Great act, but not just for his promoter, for the sport. He's a brilliant young fella. So, he will be rebuilt. But again, for me, it was just too much of a quick leap up from essentially journeyman to Dave Allen.
Yeah, OK. Well, moving on from one heavyweight pair to another, we caught up with Eddie Hearn, who's becoming somewhat of a friend of the show, and he filled us in with what's the latest for Anthony Joshua and what it could mean for a potential fight with Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury is a big tease. Every day I open up Instagram like today and he's got his wraps on saying he's done 12 rounds. He looks super fit, Tyson Fury. He looks like he's ready to go now, which is encouraging because obviously everyone's desperate to make it happen. But, no one said, I think it's coming, I think he's coming back, But at the same time, he's training. And I feel like, with Tyson Fury over the years, you've seen him not training and balloon out of shape. And then it takes him a long time to come back. Now it looks like he's either ready to fight or he's ready to begin camp, which is hugely encouraging. But I just don't think he'll be able to leave it alone, if I'm honest with you, because the money's one thing, but just the occasion and the challenge. And he's a competitor. He's a winner. And I can't believe he's going to let it slide.
So, well, that does kind of seem like a familiar story. From what Eddie just said there, is that anything new?
Until we hear from Anthony Joshua, I won't really take too much credence from anything that really gets said. I thought it was strange that AJ was sparring Lawrence Okoli out in Dubai, looking fully fit, and then needed elbow surgery. Whenever that elbow surgery happens, he will need time to recover, rehabilitation. We'll see if he stays with Ben Davison for his comeback, or if he now needs to re-establish with a new trainer. So it'd be interesting. I saw, like, everyone's been getting excited with Tyson Fury, and even yesterday morning there was a social post where he was at an airport and him and his dad were going to do a massive business deal. And then I did a bit of digging, and he was signing up to be an ambassador for a financial tech company.
Would you take financial advice from Big John Fury?
I'd take some from Tyson. I don't know what I'd take from John. Listen, I think the fight is happening. From what I understand, Tyson has just signed a new Netflix deal.
Is that at home with the Furies?
Yeah, well, I don't know the specifics of it, but I reckon that if he's just signed a series with Netflix, I reckon it will be almost showing his camp and build-up to a fight. And I wouldn't be surprised if the fight ends up on Netflix.
Interesting. So Eddie also, and you can catch that full interview on Sunsport's YouTube channel and website, Eddie did also mention that AJ was having keyhole surgery on his elbow, which we knew, and said he will be able to train from September onwards. But interestingly, he did say, we will fight in 2025 with or without Tyson. Now, you said last week, you kind of praised Eddie for being honest and saying we're waiting for Tyson.
Yeah.
If they've now flipped that and they're saying he'll fight with or without him, is that wise, or what's your thinking on that?
I think wisdom goes out the window, really, because AJ's just signed a 2-fight deal with Turkey Al Sheikh, Saudi Arabia. So again, he'll fight when they tell him, and they'll fight whoever they tell him to fight. So, AJ might want a rebuild fight in this country at an arena, but when you sign a 2-fight deal with Turkey Al Sheikh, you will fight when you're told to fight. So, if AJ fights before, then I guess if he fights before 2025 and we bring Saudi Arabia into the equation, then AJ boxing there towards the end of the year. You know, they love a December show over there, don't they? I've missed a couple of Christmases being over there. So yeah, that would make sense. AJ starting training again in September and fighting in Saudi Arabia when it's cooler, November, December. That makes sense to me.
Maybe we take the pod on the road. But that wasn't the only thing that Eddie let us know. He gave us an update on the potential rematch between Eubank Jr and Conor Benn following their classic in April.
You know, you heard His Excellency on the night talk about, I think, September 27th at Spurs. For us, that's what we're expecting. The second fight, we signed a contract for 2 fights, not for a rematch to be exercised, for 2 fights. So, as far as we're concerned, number 2 will take place in September. But obviously, Eubank's got to be ready, and he's got to be comfortable to move forward. So, Conor's ready to go now. And obviously he's itching to get back in the ring with Eubank.
So that was Eddie Hearn there saying that the potential rematch between Eubank Jr and Conor Benn could come as early as September 27th back at Tottenham. Now, well, if that is to be the case, if a boxer traditionally has 12 weeks of training camp, that would mean they'd need to get back in the gym in a month or so after a pretty gruelling first fight.
Yeah, incredibly gruelling fight. But I don't think, although Chris spent a couple of nights in hospital, it was to rehydrate. I don't think either of them have suffered an injury, I think Chris had some stitches around his eye from a head clash.
Or the apparent broken jaw, you mean?
Yeah, the broken jaw fused very quickly. They don't need a camp to learn what the other guy does. Listen, we've touched on it. We might say that's too soon, the turnaround is too fast, they won't have a full camp. Again, the people who are funding these shows and paying people massive money, they don't really care for that. That's not their interest. If they've signed for a fight on September 27 and they want that to happen, whether it's the Ring or Riyadh season, that is what they will have to do. I mean, we've just seen a couple of weeks ago, Dana White was confirmed as the man who was going to take over boxing for Saudi Arabia and do Crawford Canelo. That's in the bin. That's not happening. So ideas can flip on a sixpence. At the moment, yeah, September 27 at Spurs, Benn Eubank too. And whether they're fully fit or not, if they want to make the fight, they signed on the line, it will happen.
From one Eubank to another, Harlem Eubank announcing that he will fight Jack Catterall on July 5th at the AO Arena in Manchester, and Wally caught up with Harlem himself.
You're not messing around, Harlem. It doesn't feel like you're taking any learning fights anymore. That's it. You know, I've always wanted to go in there against the best, and we believe Jack Catterall is the best out there. You know, I've said it. I think he's the best on the Matchroom roster. You know, he's beaten former world champion after former world champion. I believe that he was undisputed not too long ago, and that's where I believe, you know, I can be. You know, that's where I want to be, and these are the type of fights, you know, that I need. This is the perfect opportunity to go in there and show my ability in the sport, and I'm excited.
It's one thing to go up against a guy that's boxed at the level that Jack has and beaten the people that he has, like Josh Taylor, but to do it in his backyard as well. You're not doing it in London or Birmingham where we could have an even fight. You are the away fighter. 80% of the crowd is going to be against you.
Yeah. These are the type of nights, you know, these are the type of nights I've dreamt about. And this is what we work day in, day out in the gym for. You know, these opportunities to go into a champion's backyard, you know, and rip it away from them. This is it's gonna be a beautiful night. And you know, I've been preparing for this type of fight for, you know, over 10 years. This is why I got into the game.
So, well, in the run-up to the announcement of the fight, which was made at the Copper Box, there was some reports about the fight happening, and there was a few whispers, but nothing concrete. At the time of the rumours, it seemed like a bit of a strange one for me. Now it's announced. What's your take on the fight?
I'm really pleased for Harlem because it wasn't too long ago that he was called into a boxer ring.
Very hastily, abruptly, wasn't it?
With Adam Azim, and that fight, you know, you're always concerned when they announce a fight without a date or a venue. That raises alarm bells. Harlem was ready to have that fight with Adam Azim. Boxer were telling people it was happening, and suddenly it never happened. So Harlem has been looking for a big fight for a long time. And yeah, this is a great step up for me. Jack Catterall is the unofficial, undisputed world champion. You know, what happened with Josh Taylor was a real shame. So yeah, I think it's a great step for Harlem. Jack is a tough man to beat. So awkward, so talented. They're quite similar, really understated, not interested in talking rubbish or acting flash. Two great lads, great fight. Look forward to it.
Well, one man that Catterall knows very well is Josh Taylor. Unfortunate to lose to him in 2022 on a very controversial split decision, but came back to win the rematch last May. And Taylor hasn't been in the ring since, but he will return on Saturday up at welterweight. First fight with Frank Warren against Ekow Essuman. What are your thoughts on everything surrounding this, from his move to Warren, his move up in weight, the layoff, and everything that sort of goes with it?
We'll see in this fight. The Josh Taylor that tore through that super light division was sensational, so good. Him and Shane McGuigan were a magnificent team. I loved watching him. The Prograis fight, one of the best I've ever been at. And I wouldn't say that it's unravelled, but Josh's career probably post-Catterall, I know they did the rematch, but it's almost been sort of on a downward trajectory, really. So this is the start of the rebuild. If Josh Taylor is going to get back to where he was, and all respect to Ekow Essuman, from a tough gym up in Nottingham, a good bunch of people, and I've watched loads of his fights. He's always had to be on the undercard. He's not a huge name. Again, an understated, proper boxing man.
Almost the prime example of the Who Needs Him club.
Yeah. But if Josh Taylor is ever going to get back to the level that he was at, even a few pounds up, he needs to make light work of Ekow Essuman, and that's not a discredit of Ekow. But you know, for me, at home in Glasgow, he will need a stoppage victory, and he will need an impressive one. Yeah, you know, with the achievement that he's had before, he hasn't got time to hang around. So yeah, I look forward to it, but we'll see. We'll see how dedicated Josh has managed to stay during his time away from that elite level.
It seems like what you're saying is his career could be on the line. Am I being dramatic in saying that?
No, you're not being dramatic. I mean, every time anyone gets in the ring, career's on the line. But with Josh, Yeah, listen, I guess, because we'll see. Don't get me wrong. If he loses a tough, good fight with Ekow Essuman and the Glasgow crowd is reminded of how talented and exciting he is, then it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But if we see an underwhelming performance where we see a fella who maybe's fallen out of love with the sport, who hasn't been able to really connect with his latest gym or his latest trainer, then yeah, I guess you would sit around and wonder what happened, because again, he has been the undisputed world champion, a magnificent fighter. So you wonder sort of, yeah, what is there left to achieve? If he's out of love with it, then we'll know, because Ekow will drag it out of him. Ekow will drive him mad. He's not called the Engine for nothing. He will be all over him.
And also on the undercard is Moses Atama, who returns against American Mike Balogun. And that will come off the back of 2 big wins against Marius Wack and Dempsey McKean, who are, good names and great builder names. Obviously not quite got the name here, but it's a Southpaw American that brings challenges in itself.
Yeah, it will. I feel for Moses and his manager, Francis Warren, because I know that they have approached and pestered and offered to overpay much bigger names that people would know. And those guys categorically do not want to fight Moses. And I don't blame them. If a Charles Martin, a former world champion who would have paid crazy money to come over here and lose to AJ,
like a god.
Yeah. If he comes over here and loses to a 19-year-old that nobody's heard of, that's a retirement fight. So I understand everyone swerving him like the plague. And knowing Moses, he's been complaining about wanting to fight, bigger names and bigger fighters since about his 2nd professional fight. So I'm sure he'll want to get in the ring, learn, and get past this quickly, and then hopefully nail down a big name, because that's all that he wants. The McKean one, it was a poison chalice, because McKean had gone 9 3/4 rounds with Hrgovic previously, so he was supposed to pose a challenge, and the way he destroyed him in a round was sensational. Almost any fight he had after that was going to be a step down if it wasn't, like essentially a world title shot. So, I look forward to seeing what he does, and I expect that the next big show, he'll be stepping up against a massive opponent, because it's what he wants.
That's all for this week's Split Decision. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give the video a like, drop your predictions for this week's big fights in the comments, and subscribe to Sun Sports YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.